Hey everybody, my name is Rydo, and it is in the middle of the Steam winter sale, and I am in the process of airing the 2018 Steam wishlist cleanup, and it occurred to me, since the Steam winter sale is happening right now, I probably should go through what was the secondary fall list and clean that up also, because if there are games that came out relatively recently and I was a little bit iffy on them, I wasn't sure that I really wanted to own them or play them, I should put those on the wish list before sale happens, so I'm already doing this a little late, but the sale's still going on. Games on my wish list are games that I really do want to own and cover, or at least I'm considering very heavily, and I ask people to support my channel by friending me on Steam and gifting me games off my wishlist. Now, the wishlist cleanup was about making sure no games were on the wishlist that were actually bad and not worth covering. The follow list cleanup is to now follow up on that about a month since I've actually done the wishlist cleanup, since that was pre-recorded footage. And there is quite a lot of games that now have fallen into categories where I need to really put more consideration to it and decide whether this game should be removed from the follow list because it's not good enough, or added to the wish list because it is good enough. A lot of these games were simply sitting on the fact that apparently this one got upgraded to the wish list at some point. They're sitting on the fact that they didn't have a minimum of 20 reviews, but they also weren't so old that they apparently several of these games got upgraded to the wishlist. They weren't so old that I would have to decide based on the potentially 0 reviews a game might have. Now, I have done a lot of cleanup here, and while this is a depiction of my follow list, it's not every game we're going to consider, because I took out anything that still didn't have 20 reviews. So every single game I look at, it needs actual thought, whereas the Steam wishlist cleanup, you didn't really have to think too much if you didn't want to. A lot of times I just said, well, I'll just knock this down to the follow list and come back and give it a second thought later. Now it's time for that second thought. Now, I stream every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday looking at every single game that comes out on Steam while playing Hearthstone and talking about video game news, and that means consistently on a weekly basis, 3 times weekly, there are games getting added to the follow list. So this list can't go on. Apparently I bought this during the sale, so I'll have to do some more cleanup. The follow list can't just consistently grow and grow and grow, because it will be just unmanageable. Suppose it's worth mentioning that we are doing this on Christmas. Happy Christmas for those who celebrate it. I chose to do this right now because I figured there might be a few people out there looking for something to watch on YouTube, and let's face it, there isn't a lot on TV or YouTube on Christmas Day. So hopefully people can appreciate this extra content, even though it is kind of a unique content. I don't know how often I'm gonna have to come back and look at the follow list and clean it up, whether it's gonna be on a quarterly basis or a yearly basis or monthly basis. I suspect it's gonna be closer to monthly basis. The follow list on Steam, and Steam in general, has this problem where you can sort your wish list quite a bit. You really can't do anything. There's no filters, no sorting, there's nothing here. It doesn't show you a price because a lot of these games aren't even available, but a lot of them are available for purchase. So your follow list is not very great. Ideally, you'd want to be able to create multiple wish lists like any other storefront if you go to Amazon.com, for instance, you can make as many wish lists as you want. And that would make a lot of sense. I could put all the RPGs in a wish list. I could put all the visual novels in a wish list. I could put all the adult games in a wish list. I could put all the action fighting games in different wish lists. That would make a lot easier sorting. And then when I wanted to look at everything, there should just be a default wish list. So let's start with the first game. So the first game we have, and this is going to be right down to the same rules as the wishlist cleanup, basically. First game we have is 1111 Memories Retold, which is, I believe, a World War One, World War One story-rich adventure game. I'm not big into the World War games, but I do think that this one seems like it's doing something that I could appreciate, instead of just being a first-person shooter that is set in the World War environments. This feels like it might be telling an actual story, and I'm pretty story-based. It's from Bandai Namco, a Japanese developer, so that might color the presentation a little bit, but we'll ignore that part for a moment. Bandai Namco also sometimes does some good things. The reason why this game wasn't added to the wish list, almost certainly, is because it didn't have enough positive reviews. Well, it didn't have enough reviews at all of verified people that purchased the game when it came out November 8th. And here we are, December 25th. So now that over the minimum of 20 people have reviewed it, now that I can see it's positive, it's easy enough now to just add this to the wish list. And the nice thing about this, as long as the pages keep me logged in, which Steam doesn't seem like it likes to, I can just click here and remove it from the follow list. So unlike the wish list cleanup where I had to put things in text files and do a lot of work off screen, I can do it all automatically this way. And I'm not even going to close this page, I'm just going to leave it. And then it's going to take me to Agony Unrated. Now we'll scroll down quickly because Agony Unrated is known for sexual content, nudity, gore, and violence. And the developers MadMind Studio has announced a game called Succubus, which also I think they had another game in development too that they had already announced. MadMind is a weird company. They made a Kickstarter, they had a publisher, they then threw the publisher under the bus, as best as I can tell, and said that the publisher forced them to sell a censored version, and then they promised that they would have this unrated version, which then they unpromised the unrated version, and then they brought the unrated version out. So it's kind of flippant and bad. Now the problem with Agony is it's going to be questionable as the years go by whether this game really has any relevancy. It wasn't a great game in general. It was definitely selling itself on sex. But there's a lot of games on my wish list that sell themselves mostly on sex, and I don't see any reason why this one shouldn't be upgraded to the wish list too. Just because if Succubus comes out and turns out to be really good, which it's promising some better gameplay mechanics and ideas in the same world, maybe that will reflect well. As a YouTuber, playing the unrated version does not work any better on YouTube. So this is one of those games also that if somebody was to gift it to me, or if somebody wanted to support me and they gifted me an adult game, until I can figure out a different way to present that kind of content within YouTube's family-friendly guidelines, you're really just gifting me a game that I can play personally, and maybe I could talk about it in some shorter version. But it's not a game that I don't want to support, which is to say, I want adult games to be allowed on Steam, and there's a lot of controversy around that still going around, and news about that. I want adult games to be embraced and supported in the video game world, and I want them to be aged appropriately and age gated appropriately, of course, so only adults can play them, but I also want there to be a strong industry there. So I would sort of like to support Manmind, so this might be a game that I would buy at some point and never actually get around to playing. Moving on, sorry for the bright white light. That's the page reloading, I believe. Right now I have one of my plugins has crashed and I desperately need to close all of these pages, and that is in part the reason why we are doing this also. Okay, next we have Akihabara Feel the Rhythm Remixed. Now the thing about this is the original game, Akihabara Feel the Rhythm, came out January 26, 2017, and I don't think it's reviewed very well, and this one still hasn't been reviewed very well. It's only been out for a month. It's also a music rhythm game, which offers a couple of problems for me. A, I have no rhythm, so I can't really play a rhythm game, and B, if I play any game with a lot of music in it, it's probably going to get content ID'd and copyright claimed on YouTube, so there's a lot of reasons against this. Let's see. Here we have a review, and we'll have to come back down and look at reviews sometimes. The game seemed interesting, being a mixture of puzzle and rhythm game, but even if you ignore some of the game's current bugs, it mostly feels like a much slower version of Tetris with some background music that doesn't impact the game much. The music itself is mostly bland and too calm. It was putting me to sleep at times. So yeah, somebody didn't really like that. Then we have like 2 other English reviews, or helpful reviews. If I take the helpfulness beta off, yeah, it seems like that. So the developer is responding to some of these reviews. Let's see what the response is, not that it really matters. No. Just seems like a basic basic response, nothing too aggressive or wrong in that. This game, we have lots of plugins that will help me show things. It has had an all-time peak of 1 person. There's no Steam Spy data on it. It doesn't have any Japanese interface or subtitles, which seems very weird because this certainly looks like this would be a Japanese game, but it probably isn't. It's not unheard of for Western developers, whether they be from the United States, Europe, Russia, to try and copy the anime style. And I would say this is probably a copy of the anime style. Or, you know, you hire a animator from Asia to draw your character, but your company is running out of a different country. And when that usually happens, there's a bit of style that gets lost. And because you're basically trying to use someone else's culture to make something seem cool. So, yeah, having now a little bit more experience with this game, having seen this game at several different times, noticing that the price is $7.99, which is incredibly high and has never been lowered, even though we're in the middle of a winter sale, this game doesn't make the cut. So we can just remove it from the following list and move on. Next we have a game called Alchemy Classic, which is just a alchemy puzzle game. And I probably was not in the best of moods when I added this to the following list, just to be honest. I've been feeling rushed and suffering from insomnia for the past few months, so making decisions requires a lot of emotional and mental energy, and so a lot of times I probably just said, well, let's just be generous and throw it on the follow list. And now is not the time to be generous at all. This one's been as low as $2.99. This looks like a generic alchemy game, alchemy being a cell phone game where you just match objects. I don't think there's really a need for me to cover an alchemy game because they're all kind of the same and they're all kind of very basic and boring. They've never really added anything new to them as far as I've seen. So I don't see anything here that would make it any better than any other. So I'm going to remove this one from the follow list too. I need to start holding games to slightly higher standards because there are a lot of good games. That is the one thing that the Steam wishlist cleanup proved to me and reminded me, is that even though 2018's new releases all had problems and were kind of slight disappointments, there's still a lot of games I don't own on Steam that I do want to own. A lot of games I haven't played that I do want to play. There's still a lot of good games out there. For me personally, I now own over 1,000 games. A little bit of a humble brag there. Or straight up brag, no humble about it. But my wish list has about 2,200 games on it. So I only own about a third of what I would like to own. And with 2019 rolling around, I imagine there will be anywhere between, it could be as little as 8 new games that come out in 2019 that I actually would want to own, but more likely somewhere around 36 to maybe even 64 games come out, because there will be probably some big AAA games, but there will be a lot of small indie games, like Another Sight here. Another Sight looks like it's well animated. This is another one of those games that just didn't have enough reviews, and so I wasn't certain about this. It's a teenage girl. She's lost her sight. She has to follow this cat around instead, and the cat has to be her seeing eye cat, which is not a thing, throughout a fantasy platforming world that looks really good. Well, pretty good. So yeah, I'll add that to the wish list and remove it from the following list, and we can just move on. Now, the other thing here is if I'm going to add the main game, this is a prequel to Another Sight called Hodge's Journey, which Hodge, I guess, is the name of the cat. So if I'm going to do that, I will add this to the wish list. But this is a free game, so I'll have to be careful not to install it, because if you click install and then cancel the install, it adds it to some backend database that Steam has, but there's no way to see that backend database, so you would have to know that game, have it on your own separate list to go and find it and install it the second time. It's not under the list of your games library. I don't know why it works that way. It's pretty crazy. Maybe it wouldn't work that way if I let the game completely install and then uninstall it, but I think it still works that way. I don't know why free games work like that. It seems like it's just a bug. Moving on, we don't need to spend too much time on all of these. That there are still quite a lot, and I don't want this stream to be anywhere as long as some of the Steam wishlist cleanup videos went, where it was 3 or 5 hours for one letter of the alphabet. and it shouldn't be that. We're going to have more frequent follow list cleanups, and it's going to be hopefully a lot less garbage, because the follow list has already been slightly curated on a weekly basis. No terribly looking games should be on this list. Next we have Apollo 11 VR HD. Now this is a VR game that does not have a VR version, a non-VR version, I don't think. Let me see. That's where the description is going to come into play. It's slightly educational. It's an HD version. Like, in all odds, I probably will never buy a VR headset. This game is not saying that you need VR, but I'm also not seeing anything here that says you can play it without VR. Nor am I seeing a version that says that there's a non-VR version. There's just the original version, and then there's the HD version, and they're selling both in a bundle. So for VR games, which you can see, yeah, that texture versus that texture, that looks a lot better. For VR games, they are staying on the follow list just until I either decide no VR game is worth owning, which very few of them actually are when you have that extra cost. I probably didn't pre-filter this out because it does have 27 reviews and now it's rated positively. But yeah, this is one of those positive games because it's in VR, will stay on the follow list, so can't really make any changes there. I can make some changes here. Here's Valve's card game Artifact. We've been talking about it for a little bit in the past couple of months since it came out, November 28th. Artifact, while they have pivoted and tried to make some changes and tried to please the audience, you can see it's 53% positive of 14,876 reviews. So it's basically a failure. It probably was just an attempt to make something to supplement Counter-Strike Go, and it felt very greedy in that way. And then inherently it is an extremely greedy game because you have to pay $20 to start off with. Dota players will receive a free 1-month subscription to Dota Plus. Well, I'm not a Dota player, so yeah, like they really screwed this up for me as somebody who streams every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday of Hearthstone. There was no point, and I don't think there ever will be a point here where you can get away with where I could get away with jumping into this game and having fun. The main problem, particularly for me, is that when I am streaming Hearthstone, the only reason I'm playing Hearthstone is because it's a slowish game and it means I can do other things and multitask. This game has 3 different fields that you have to focus on, which makes it a much more engaging game, which is usually good, but for my cases actually isn't. Trading card games in generally are slow, and I think that's what people are looking for. So yeah, I don't think I really need to follow Artifact. I know it exists. I will get reminders that it exists, but I'm sticking with Hearthstone. Maybe Magic the Gathering Arena would come out and be amazingly great, but I doubt that too. I think that Magic the Gathering just has too much of a history to it and is a little too slow and complicated, and I don't like their land card system for mana. If Konami or Capcom ever made a good Yu-Gi-Oh, I think it's Konami, if they ever made a good Yu-Gi-Oh PC game, I might jump to that. Because I like the wildness of Yu-Gi-Oh. Next we have what is looking like it's a bit of a sleeper game. I'm not sure if this is a port from a console game that is just been kind of released. Asterix and Obelix are based off a comic strip series that I think is popular in Europe, but it's not something from the United States I've heard of. But I have seen these characters, so I do know that they are somewhat popular. This is probably another game that just didn't have enough reviews at that point. But seeing that it is positive now, I can put it on the follow list, put on the wish list, and we can move forward. Now this is Asterix and Obelix XXL2, which I don't believe there is on Steam Asterix XXL1 or anything like that. So you do run into this situation on rare occasions, and it always kind of sucks, where there was potentially a game that was released on a console a long time ago and it just never got ported to PC. So yeah, you just kind of have to live with it. I could look at the developer, I could look at the publisher, but it would be easier, I suppose, just to copy this and paste this and just search. Yeah, you can see that there's no game called Asterix and Obelix besides that game, and there's nothing just called Asterix. So yeah, that's still a shame, but we are getting a lot of older games that are coming back. This is another game that I probably should have pre-filtered, or I guess maybe I wanted to mention it. So I believe this game, Backgammon, Chess, and Checkers, was originally just titled Backgammon, and I think they've actually updated it to include Chess and Checkers, which is nice. Here you have what seems like you're sitting in a nice Middle Eastern garden playing chess, and you can play this one on desktop or VR, which that's the only kind of VR games that I'm willing to try. Unfortunately, this one's still not got enough reviews, so I don't want to upgrade it to a let's see. It says the first game you played, the game froze, and Tabletop Simulator still probably is a better choice to play. This is here because I want a good backgammon game. This looks like a pretty good backgammon game. It also kind of looks like it's still in development. So I'm gonna leave this on the follow list. Now, at a certain point next year, when I'll be looking at games from October from this year, and I'll say, well, this game has been out for a year, it's got only one review, clearly nobody had any interest in it, I'm not willing to roll the dice, figuratively speaking, on this, because, you know, this looks really pretty in screenshots and video form, but it might be incredibly buggy. Now that is always a risk. Like, you could run into a game that looks really good but plays like garbage. So that one stays. Now, this Bad Dream series apparently has gotten some coverage from other streamers. It's a point and click game. I'm still a sucker for point and click games. I have a ton more of those on my wish list than anything else. So there's really not much I have to do. It's interesting you can't scroll this this shelf here. Yeah, we can see 72% positive. Really don't have to go any further than that. I like these horror games, particularly if you're doing a slightly different artistic style like this sepia tone. And I think that there are several Bad Dream games, so I'm going to add this to the wish list, remove it from the file list, and I believe there's another game called Bad Dream Coma that also, yeah, Bad Dream Coma is already on the wish list. And did I just take it off the wish list? Yes, I did. So I already had that game. So Bad Dream Fever, I think, is the continuation of that. This one right now on the winter sale is discounted to 89 cents, which is not too bad. Although I would like to mention that there were a lot of games that simply did not come out very cheaply during this winter sale. Like, you didn't really see a lot of 60-cent games that were still on my wish list. Interesting. The publisher of Bad Dream Fever is not the same publisher of Bad Dream Coma. So maybe the two games are not even a sequel. Not gonna lie, I have some bad reviews, but I also have some lovely ones. Let's see. I know that after we released Coma, people expected something bigger, but Coma was way beyond our reach. Developing the game broke me mentally. It was very unprofitable for our team. Interesting. Straight talk from the developer there. Well, maybe $7.49 is too expensive. I'm not really considering price for a lot of these games. That is something I'll consider when I actually have to put my money where my mouth is during a sale. But seems like more people like this than they didn't. So we can move on from there. Next we have Ballistic NG, and you can see we're only at the B, so this is going to be a longer process. I don't want to be flippant about it, is the deal. Like, I could certainly go in here and just say, let's flippantly add it to the wish list, or not add it to the wish list. Let's see. Reload it, that way I can add it to the list. A lot of these pages are not. 96% of the players of 233, which is quite a lot, like this. And this is a great example of games that really do hit it off, because this only came out December 14th. And this is one of those F-Zero clones, and there's quite a few of them. Eventually I might, at the end of, I'm thinking 2020, I'll have to do a Steam wishlist cleanup again, and I imagine I might run into several games that are very similar to these F-Zero clones, as I describe them, and I'll have to decide which one of these is actually still the one I want to own or play, because I really would only want to play one game like this. This one looks good enough though to be on the wish list and be in competition for that, so we'll add that to the list. Move on. Next we have Battle Princess Madeline, running 71% of 28 users. This is the game that has a bit of a story behind it, because the creator kickstarted the game being a programmer, saying that his daughter asked him to make a Ghost and Goblins style game where you could play as a female character, and so he very much pushed it and sold it as that. Not that well, I think it kind of was a bad thing, because it really to me felt like he was using his daughter and using gender politics and identity politics as a way of selling a game that probably couldn't even be that good in the first place, because let's face it, it's a Ghosts and Goblins, Ghouls and Goblins clone, and that game is incredibly difficult. What we see here as an actual product, though, looks like it's pretty good, and I do want to, if I was to cover this game and own it, and I kind of do, I want to put it to the wish list and play it and actually criticize it on its own merit. When that is said and done, it might put it somewhere around the 71% out of 100. Or it might actually be a great game. I think a example of doing something like this that's done better is the way that WayForward made their Shanti series, where you have a plethora of female characters, it seems, in the Shanti series, but they are really just Super Mario Brothers clones on PC, and they are done very well with their own art style, and they are not sold as you should play this over Mario Brothers or Super Mario Bros. 1 or 2 and 3, as if they could be any competition to those classics, just because our main character happens to be a female. So, but also there's a slight difference between the Shanti series and this, because Battle Princess Madeline seems like she is a little girl basically in the story, and Shanti is going with the more traditional, she's a half woman, half genie in slightly scantily clad clothing. And so, slightly different audience there. But yeah, this one deserves a fair look, despite its own self-inflicted controversy. This came out December 5th. I haven't heard of anybody covering it, too. So, like, most games released so late, near the end of the year, are probably not going to be that good in the first place. So that is a consideration. Like, if it's coming out after Black Friday, it's probably not that good of a game. But there have been quite a lot of games that have come out since then. But yeah, I would, if I was a game developer, I would not release my game on December 5th. I would push it to February, push it past the Christmas point. So it might actually get reviewed by reviewers, which this is a game that probably could get reviewed by reviewers if he had the right connections or given out review codes to the right people, but it didn't seem like that happened. So maybe he did give out codes and people didn't like it and they didn't want to write bad reviews or continue playing the game, but that would be pure speculation. Moving on, that was talking too much about one specific game. This is going to get way too long if I get into every story behind every game, which there a lot of times are stories. This game, Beatboxers, I really wanted it to succeed, but unfortunately you can see that in the last 30 days it's got a 36 out of 11 user reviews positive, and it's 62% overall, so it's getting mixed reviews. It's a fighting game with a music gameplay metric, and apparently it just does not run well. Let's see, too much lag. Let's see. There's no multiplayer, but it claims multiplayer, according to this one. It's good concept, but it lacks substance right now to warrant even a download, even as a free title. So this is a straight up free game that they're trying to get to work, but it's not succeeding. Now, this is actually going to stay on the wish list, though. because this is from Brigham Young University, this is a student project. And I did want to cover student projects, but I'm going to leave it on the follow list also, so that I can find it in both. This is probably a great game for somebody who's a video game critic like me to cover, because it is not done well, and I can point out those mistakes while still showing, hey, these students did have an idea here. If they had a AAA developer supporting them and putting in the time to fix all the bugs and improve the lag and fix all the things that are wrong with it, this might have been a game that Digital Devolver or some other publisher would have picked up. So I'll have to keep an eye out for any other games from student projects. I don't know why so many of these that shouldn't be considered are here. Perhaps I did consider them, and like, this is probably an asset flip game, and that is the reason why I didn't want to keep it on the follow list. Beating a dead horse with a one-trick pony. It looks very pretty. Let's see. It's a sequel to a game called Must Die. Interesting, I've never heard of Must Die either. So maybe if we could find that game, that might give us some more information. But I'm fairly certain what this really boils down to, they're calling it an RPG. Let's see, mild melee combat and platforming. Nobody has touched this game, and I've never heard of a game called this. This is probably an asset flip troll game. Let's see if we can find something called Must Die on Steam. There's Orcs Must Die. See, part of the problem with Steam is that I have all these plugins. If I was trying to search the exact name, it would put everything in alphabetical order, so that wouldn't work either. Maybe if I search Jeff Koons Must Die. Yeah, there's nothing here on Steam by that name. So if this was a game that was released on some other storefront or like directly online from a website, I'd never be able to find it. Yeah, this seems like it's pretending like it's something really nice looking, but so many asset flips look exactly like this, and I shouldn't even be so. I should be a little bit more jaded and just remove this. If this turns out to be an amazing game, people will hopefully let me know, but almost certainly it wouldn't be. Moving on, I don't need to really agonize over things like this. Here's a BAFTA winning work of fiction game. It's tagged with nudity, point and click adventure. Seems like it is half real video and half video game content. It's 100% positive of 24 user reviews. I think that means it goes to the follow list. Looks like BAFTA being the British Arts Film Theatre Awards or something like that. This looks like this is a game that has some like relevance. It's like one of those small indie movies that wins awards and thus has a little bit of a reason to talk about it. Moving on, we have Below, which apparently Below has been in early access and people have been talking about it for several years. I don't remember this game. and it seems like nobody's really satisfied with it. 68% of 334 verified purchasers rated it positively, and that's a pretty incredibly low amount. There's a big skew even on Steam of people who are not willing to give a thumbs down to a game. So 70, 75, 80% minimum review scores to be considered positive often. Things I've heard about this game is that it doesn't really explain itself, that it has a Dark Souls corpse run style of gameplay, that you have to have a lantern with you at all times to see anything. It doesn't visually look very appealing. There's a lot of blackness around the edges. So, as somebody who kind of knew nothing about it before, and now it seems like nobody's liking it, I can just remove it from the follow list. This is a big name though. It's from Capybara Games, who made Sword and Sorcery, or Super Brothers Sword and Sorcery's EP, and Super Time Force Ultra, and Might and Magic Clash of Heroes. I liked that game. I guess Capybara really hasn't made a lot of things. So yeah, below can be ignored. Sometimes that just happens. In fact, in 2018 that kind of happened a lot, where there's games that simply did not live up to the hype, and more I'm trying to get away from hype style of games. Next we have Beneath the Surface, which is a idle game, it looks like, for the most part. It's free to play, doesn't have any microtransactions. That's something I've realized you need to start looking for, is over here. Doesn't have any in-the-app purchases. Let's see, a relaxing hiatus from the hustle bustle of idle life. A short relaxing fishing game. An indie game, music by Kevin MacLeod, who makes all the public domain music. In fact, what you're listening to right now, I believe, is made by Kevin MacLeod. People like this game though, so I don't see why I shouldn't put this on the wish list. Now, free games on the wish list probably will never get covered because heck, you could just install it yourself, but I might as well throw it there and remove it from the follow list. Beneath the Surface, as a short, simplistic, kind of idle fishing game. Seems like it's good. Next we have Cardcore, and I think I'm gonna have to part ways with Cardcore. Unfortunately, I was hoping that maybe it would get better. The thumbnail looks kind of interesting, the card art looks kind of interesting, but that alone does not make a good card game. And what probably kills this more than anything else is just how many people are playing it. Like one person right now, three right today at max. The maximum amount according to Steam charts, so it's 10 people online at the same time. That's a dead community. There's no in-app purchases or anything, so that's nice, but apparently you can purchase skins somehow, but unfortunately it just never caught on. You really can't make a card game without a major corporation behind it, willing to fund it, willing to continuously develop on it and add more cards. Next we have this game called Clatter, which is a turn-based tactics game that also kind of looks a little bit like that Minecraft game Spleef, where the floor falls out below you. I think that's the name of that game. Alright, well, this is another one of those games that when I first looked at it, because I look at games the second they come out on Steam, they don't have reviews. If I had seen these reviews, I would have been like, okay, this looks good enough, this makes it to the wish list. So we really don't have to make much of more of a decision there. Now, for a game like this, maybe I really wouldn't add it too much. Apparently, it's part of the Humble Bundle Yogscast Jingle Jam, which I didn't feel like that was a very good deal. It would give you 79 random games, apparently, but for $35, but they were really, really random games. Not curated much at all. I only saw like 3 or 4 that were worth it. Yeah, when I have to put my money where my mouth is, I'm not sure I particularly choose Clatter. I'm not sure that's the style of game I'm looking towards playing anytime soon. Next we have Code of Princess, which I think has got to leave at 57% of 138 user reviews. This is a anime beat 'em up RPG that I believe is like a port of a DS game or something, and it's just not done well. It has a character that is from the Disgaea series, it seems like. This guy looks like a character from the Disgaea series, but maybe they're just copying the look. Doesn't seem like it really builds into it. And yeah, this one really doesn't sell too much on the cheesecake either, because if it did, it would be tagged sexual content or nudity. So your high fashion bikinis here are about as much as all you're gonna see. I very possibly might end up buying this game anyways, because of just, it might be cheaper to buy the bundle to get the Urahama Yumi Hara Kawase series, let me pronounce it correctly, which are all on my wish list, you can see. So might just be cheaper to buy the bundle, get a couple of other games that way in the soundtrack. Let's see, it's a mobile game that was ported over to various platforms including PC. It's your standard beat 'em up that makes in some slight RPG elements. Very straightforward, nothing special. Guardian heroes all over the plane. 5 hours. Now, playing a 5-hour RPG might actually be appealing to me, but it loses its relevancy when less than 60% of the people who've played it liked it. Like, I don't need to play an obscure game that nobody's really heard of, that's a mobile port that nobody liked. That's just too much. Next we have Creeping Terror, which is 68% with 16 user reviews, which is still not enough user reviews normally for me to consider it. So why did I think I needed to consider this game now? Probably, yes, this is the DS game that is horribly ported, and that's why this one needs to go. We can see in the reviews. I have an emulators on my Raspberry Pi that emulate DS games better than this paid version of a game. So what's the point for paying for it? Really, there's no effort put in at all. So, yeah, OpenCritic gave it a 53. Like, it's just a very low quality port. This is, can't even get the graphics to look good in a full screen video. So yeah, and also this doesn't seem like it ties into anything, or it's even from a recognizable publisher or developer. So yeah, that can leave the fall list. Next we have Death's Gambit, which is a Metroidvania game of some sort. It came out August 13th, and it almost certainly had enough reviews. So I'm wondering to myself, what went on here that made me not put this on the follow list in the first place? Because clearly this should be on the follow list. Unless, yeah, it says it's only gotten like 68 reviews in the past 30 days. Yeah, I'm not sure what made me even slightly iffy about this one. This one looks good enough to be on the follow list. So, I mean, on the wish list. Let's put it on the wish list, take it off the follow list, and move on. I may never get around to actually buying it. It's an Adult Swim game, which also gives it some relevancy. Like, maybe I wouldn't ever get around to buying and playing this. Maybe I would, but that's true for anything on my wish list. Next we have a game called Don't Feed the Monkeys, which looks like it's a crazy, maybe point and click adventure game. It says it's a simulation strategy, choices matter game. Seems like you're Googling people and spying on people. Interesting. There's a couple of games on Steam that have been built around the idea of spying on people. But this seems like it's done in a slightly different way. It's overwhelmingly positive in the last 30 days. It's very positive. There's no reason that this one shouldn't be on there. Apparently it's bundled with Beholder, another game built around the idea of spying on people that I think has a slightly different gameplay mechanic, so that can go to the wish list. Most of these are making it to the wish list for one reason or another. Next we have Don't Forget Our Esports Dream, which is an RPG built around a group of people who want to be esports players. It's weird that it's an RPG simulation. It looks a lot more like it would be a visual novel if I was to guess. But yeah, I'm not seeing anything here that looks bad. Yeah, and it looks a little unique, so add it to the wish list. Wonder if there are actually any esports people related to this or reference it. It's a Kickstarted game. It is a visual novel according to this review. I would say it probably is. A lot of visual novels have gotten away from labeling themselves as visual novels though, for one reason or another. I think this deserves to be on the wish list though, so I'll leave it there. Next we have Drizzle Path Deja Vu. I believe this developer makes these games that look very pretty but then really have no gameplay in them. And so this one's 88% of 27 user reviews. But then let's see. Nothing to do but walk and find the path to the end. Practically no interaction in environment or objects, just some narrative about life lessons, life meanings, all of which were good, but it wasn't enough to justify calling it a game. Yeah, that's what I kind of get the feeling this is. So if we look at this developer's page, I can hover over these and see this one's positive, this one's positive with 18, this one's mostly positive with 61. Honestly though, I just don't trust this developer, so I'm gonna actually look at that game. You can see there's a lot of these Nephanese, Drizzlepath, mixed reviews on the original, mixed here, mixed here. He is getting better at what he's doing, but it's still pretty much nothing. Let's look at Bottle Pilgrim. They're all described away. A story about loss and regret, redemption, which reminds us we cannot change things what have done. It's very mental and not very game related, and I think you'd probably do better with Dear Esther or Edith Finch, What Remains of Edith Finch. I think playing those games and having great experiences with those games probably expense it. Dull, slow, poorly voiced, badly optimized. These are all just walking simulators. I like games like Firewatch and The Vanishing of Ethan Carter. I'd recommend Ethan Carter. I really wouldn't recommend Firewatch because of Campo Santo being the creators of it. This feels really repetitive though. So even though this one's on the wish list, I'm going to see if I can remove it, which my plugin will allow me to click an X that wouldn't be there by default. So one of the plugins I have enhances those features. Next we have Duelist, which is a free-to-play multiplayer card game. It is rated mostly positive. Duelist, I know, paid some streamers to push it and promote it when it first came out. It's free to play, but it does have these in-app purchases, and this is the new thing that requires it. It is supported also by Bandai Namco, so you'd think it has slightly a better chance of succeeding. But it only supports English, so there's a slight problem there. You need to be able to support a lot of languages. And while it is a card-based game, it's also a positioning tactics-based game, so it's pretty far from Hearthstone. But it's still a collectible card game, and I just don't think it's going to be slow enough to that I could ever switch over to it and play it. Let's see, you can also tell that when you're seeing a lot of animations in your video, which we're not seeing too many right now, that usually is the developer hiding some boring gameplay elements. Like, this seems like it is more work to play a single game than it would to play a game of Hearthstone, and that's definitely not what I'm looking for. Although this does look pretty in some of the animations and some of the characters. And here you can have a collection of reviews. All-time peak of 116. No, all-time peak of 2,344. Today's peak is 116. 103 are playing right now. It's not terrible numbers, but it's pretty bad numbers, I think, compared to Hearthstone. If I was to guess, on Christmas Day playing Hearthstone right now, there's probably at least 30,000 people, I would guess, playing Hearthstone right now. I'm picking a number out of the air, of course, but I guess I'll keep following Duelist in the most literalist of sense, in the idea that I'm keeping an eye on it. Oh, but then I just realized this came out in 2016, so I'm already too late. Like, if I was to try to jump into this, what you're talking nearly 4 years later now, or slightly below 4 years, what, 3 years, yeah. It's too late. All the beta players are going to have all the cards, they're going to know all the strategies, if I was to jump in, I'd just lose like crazy. So Duelist is not something I need to follow anymore. Moving on. If it had been only a year old, I might have considered it. Next we have a game called Earthworms, which is a point-and-click game that's not tagged as point-and-click. It's rated 91% positive with 23 user reviews. That's all I really needed to see because I'm a sucker for point-and-click games. So we'll add that to the wish list. I'm trying to slightly limit the number of point-and-click games on the wish list. Next we have a game called Ella, E-L-E-A, Episode 1. The question would be, is there an episode 2 out yet? I don't see that. So, basically, if you're releasing episodic games, and you see they don't have an episode 2 from this developer, that means this game is technically, in my mind, early access. And you're just pre-ordering an early access game by buying the first episode. So this can stay on the falling list, but I'm not going to promote it, even though it doesn't meet the requirements. It has over 20 reviews. It's rated positively. Normally speaking, if this was the entire game, this would add to the wish list, but it's still pre-ordering, in my opinion. Next we have Emma, which is right on the cusp of 20 user reviews, which is a visual novel using photorealistic imagery. So it looks like a cinematic experience for 84 cents. That's good. Like I could probably use a lot more cheap games, although this winter sale, since I've already done most of my shopping for it, I have been focusing more on closer to $2.50, $5 games, older games that would have been AA games or AAA games instead of small indie single A games like this. But Emma looks good. People seem to like it. It's probably not super long. Moving on. Next we have a game called Enigma, an illusion named Family, which is 95% positive with 22 user reviews. Now I'm noticing this is tagged as an RPG Maker game, and it to me looks like it's probably a horror visual novel style game. So I'm not sure why this would be on the list in the first place. Let's see. Mini games with the WASD keys. And you can see you're getting a lot of like a full-on anime intro opening here. Maybe that's what caught my eye. The animation here is pretty dark and generic in the background. Pretty generic background, really close face. Let's see. Yeah, this doesn't particularly look like it's good enough quality for what it is. Let's see if I can skip forward in what looks like it's a let's play, maybe from the developer, maybe just the developer put up some random let's players. Yes, this is just a RPG Maker game using RPG Maker to make it an RPG game instead of it being just a visual novel. Frankly, I would have preferred you just make it a simplistic visual novel, because you're trying to tell a story, not have RPG pixel maker graphics. You know, they've added this fear and life mechanic. Yeah. This is not my style of game. I, for the most part, reject all RPG Maker games. So this can be removed. I probably was sold on the anime intro there. Here we have images that just don't want to load. The problem with doing videos like this is that you hit Steam servers so hard that they start slowing you down and not having things load. So this Epic Battle Fantasy series is made by there's several of these kind of games that are epic something from this developer, and it's overwhelmingly positive. I was a little iffy on it. It seemed like it probably was just a simplistic RPG, but there must be something in the writing, there must be something on the design. I would hope that you don't have 621 verified users who are just trolling and say, oh, this is a great troll game, and that's why we're rating it positively. So I'm adding it to the wish list with some trepidation, and I don't know if we really need to look at the others. We can look at them now. Like there's Epic Battles Fantasy 5 that I think we just added to the wish list, and then Epic Battle Fantasy 4 we can add to the wish list, and then Bullet Heaven, which we'll look at, but we'll add 3 too. So I bet 1 and 2 are not on Steam, if I was to guess. Bullet Heaven, unfortunately, I think is a bullet hell shooter, and I just don't want to ever play a bullet hell shooter, so that one won't make it to the wish list. But it seems like this developer is trying to have a series of characters that become his cast of characters to make several games that he seems like he can kind of make. So this might be just an example of a new and up-and-comer indie developer and publisher, or it might be a troll that just has figured out the way to make slightly silly trollish games that still get well received, which on rare occasions happens. Next we have Eternal Card Game, which looks quite a lot like Hearthstone. It's rated very positively. It's free to play with in-app purchases, of course. There's a all-time peak of 2,855, which is even smaller than Duelist had. This game looks really good. The problem, again, just comes down to, will the player base move there? I don't see myself willing to be the kind of person who would be willing to play a second tier or third tier collectible card game. No insult to this game at all. It looks like it's great. Looks like they looked directly at Hearthstone and said, hey, we could do that, so let's do that. That being said, I'm gonna just leave it on the follow list to keep an eye on it, because I don't want it on the wish list. Let's just be fair here. I don't want to accidentally install it and then try and play it. Next we have Everspace, which is a roguelike space sim. These space games are another style of game that's just not my interest. Let's see, it seems like it supports VR. Do you require VR? Let's see. Single player, persistent, best played with keyboard and mouse. VR support is optional. Is that how they're doing this now? VR support is optional, is now under system requirements? That would be nice if I knew that. Steam may have changed some of their website. If any of these pictures would load. So the thing about space games is it seems like it's always the same. You either build or buy a ship, You fly around in space and you shoot things. After you shoot things, maybe you can collect some scrap or just salvage some junk. Maybe you can go mine or explore a planet, and then eventually you get to like a space station and you trade. And it just never feels any different to me. It always feels like you're just in an airplane in space, which is not particularly appealing. Like visually this looks great, but the gameplay mechanic of flying around and shooting is just not something I'm interested in. Seems like you can go... No, that for a second there that looked like he was underwater. Yeah. Everything here just might be a great game, and according to all reviews it is. It's just not for me. In a roguelike game, what doesn't add anything I want in that style of gameplay, because that just means you're gonna die a lot and have to reset. So for personal preferences, Everspace is getting removed. Next game we have Evil Bank Manager, which is rated very positively. This is a simulation economy tactical game. Let's see what this looks like. Now, the video doesn't matter. We need to see what the game actually looks like. See, the thing I was kind of afraid about from this game is that it says become a Federal Reserve System and you become greatest. It felt like this might just devolve into Illuminati conspiracies, like Federal Reserve conspiracies, which, you know, some of that has truth. Like banks and Federal Reserve systems certainly do wield a lot of economic power, but this game probably is taking it to a bit of an extreme. That being said, I don't again think that this would be rated this high by so many people if it really is just a troll game down to that. It feels like it is a real game that is worth checking out. Now, being a simulation game, this might be pretty boring to cover, so this might be a game where I'd play a lot of it off screen, or I'd show it for 30 minutes and just be done with it. Or this might be like Plague Inc. Evolved, which I covered for a very long time. Or it might be like Cities Skylines, which I covered for a very short amount of time. It's a 50-50 flip, but I don't see a reason why this shouldn't be on the wish list. Should be for consideration at the very least when I decide whether I'm going to buy something. Price point will certainly play a factor. A lot of these games, as they're relatively new, are at a very high price point compared to what I would be willing to pay for a lot of things. Next we have a game called Extinction, which says it's an open world adventure game. You can see it's 40% positive of 32 users. Anytime we see something like this, it's going to be a little bit of a shame, but we can already remove it. It's a single player only game. I would have thought it would have been a multiplayer game. Let's see if we can get a picture of it before we move on. Let's see. A soldier named Evil, equipped with the skills to battle endless waves of Ravini, fight massive brutes and minions across a sprawling countryside, defending some cities and rescuing refugees from their homes. Torn from their homes. Like, the animation here doesn't look terrible. I think probably there's some problems here. Iron Galaxy, as a developer, has made some games that have gotten some coverage, but I don't think they've gotten some major popular appeal. And Modus Games as a publisher is not the biggest publisher out there by far. See, this looks like this would be a fine, almost Attack on Titan clone. Is really what it feels like it could be, is that, hey, let's make a game like Attack on Titan, but let's not get sued for the copyright things. You can see there's swinging on ropes, cutting off heads, violence, monsters coming in. Like, that does not look bad at all. What does it really play like, though? I imagine it probably doesn't play that well. And that would be my guess. That's the #1 reason why people don't like it. The poor combat system that lags behind DMC and Darksiders. The only praise is that the graphics of the game that will not catch up, but it does not offend. Otherwise the game is boring. I played 3 missions and that was enough. For me, it's max 40% and refund it. You paid for half an hour. Let's see. If we look in comparison to other Modus games, because we can't look at Iron Galaxy games, you have Ninja and Clash of the Carrots, which this may not be from Iron Galaxy, and Override Mega City Brawl, which just came out and is rated very positive. So you can see that they're not really doing a lot of things, but they are trying. Certainly there's 3 more games in development from this publisher. Maybe Iron Galaxy put a lot of things out on consoles and this is their first, or one of their first games on PC. That might be part of the problem too. Or maybe Iron Galaxy changed their name at some point too. I know that they made a couple of games, and one of them in particular, I think, decided could not be named what they wanted to name it in Europe because of copyright issues, so it had to be sold, or they had to change their name to sell it under the same name everywhere. Next we have Farming Simulator 2019. I guess I could keep this on my wish list, but I think I need to be more realistic. I seriously doubt in 2019 I'm going to play a Farming Simulator game. At some point in the future, I probably will. And this one is as positively reviewed, I imagine, as any of them are. But I'm not sure anybody is really aching for reviews of this. People who like these Farming Simulator games seems to be mostly Middle European people like these kinds of games. Already, for the most part, know that they like them. And yeah, I don't think I'd sell anybody new or help anybody make their decision on buying a Farming Simulator game. Plus, I'd probably have to put a lot of time in it, so I can just leave that off the following list. I may add Farming Simulator 20 next year on the fall list when it comes out and make the same decision. Let's see. Next we have this game called Fetch, which only has 15 reviews, but 100% of them are positive. The reason why I need to make a decision on this is this came out January 2017. So it's been out for 2 years now. It's not going to get any more reviews. It is from Big Fish Games. It's a point-and-click adventure, it says, and usually Big Fish Games makes hidden object games, but I think this actually is a point-and-click adventure. So I'm willing to put this on the wish list. 100% positive is 100% positive, even if it is a small number of people. It's clearly a hidden gem at best, with an all-time peak of 4 people playing it at the same time. It looks like it was a tablet game. I don't think I really need to bend over backwards to read negative reviews. When I was looking at games and doing the wishlist cleanup, I was looking specifically for negative reviews and for games to remove. At this point, I'm trying to be a lot more generous and saying, hey, does this game deserve to be added to the wishlist after already being on the fall list and somewhat being vetted because of that. Next we have this game called Fathang Tales of Creeping Madness. It's a choose-your-own adventure game with couch co-op and a hint of betrayal. Play as one of 4 cultists intent on releasing the Ancient One. This sounds crazy. It's 92% positive with 27 user reviews. And yeah, pages are just not gonna load. See, the problem with these Steam pages is they land you on the first thing, which is inevitably a video. Maybe I could like click something. No, that just makes it worse. It already wasn't in HD. So it lands you on these videos and then it spends all your bandwidth, which I should have enough, but Steam seems to be limiting me on downloading the video, so then you can't click on a screenshot and just have that preloaded as Chrome, which is what this browser usually does. Most pages usually do. So this looks like it's kind of a board game. Okay. Looks cool. I'll add it to the wish list. It's quite intriguing, actually. I don't know if $4.50 sounds like a decent price. $6.50 is a little bit more, and apparently a new expansion is on what has just been released. Is that DLC? No, it's just a patch. We might be seeing some progress with DLC in particular, where less and less AA and single-A developers are trying to sell DLC on PC, and instead they're just saying, hey, you're gonna get a free patch because you supported this game, and we need to continue to improve it a little bit so we can get new people to buy the game, so everybody is happy about it. We're not gonna try and milk our consumers and our customers for every last bit and dime. Unfortunately, that really is only true for single-A and AA developers. The AAA developers have gone the exact opposite way, and they are trying to have as much DLC as possible. Borderlands 2, which I recently finished recording and is airing right now, actually has a considerable amount of DLC that's kind of just hidden. Like, you get the season pass, and then it doesn't do a good job of telling you what you've unlocked and what order to play these new the new content of the season pass is. And then even when you get the season pass, there's still quite a lot of skins that you can buy that they're just cosmetic, that they really don't push. So I was actually very surprised to see how much DLC was in it, and how much I just didn't own even after I had bought the entire season pass. But it was all cosmetic stuff, so it didn't matter. Fighting EX Layer might be the fighting game for me. It's rated 88% positive of 135 reviews. I think there's probably some other fighting EX games on Steam, or that it have been on other consoles. I'm still not sure which, if any, fighting game I'm really going to cover, but until I can make a decision on that level, I'm going to just add this to the wish list. There's no reason not to. I don't know if there's really anything more to say here. So move on. See, I could definitely see myself moving from like Dragon Ball Fighter Z to something along the line of fighting EX Layer. A lot of the fighting games that are the AAA ones, though, have gotten really bad, and so I'm not sure I really would want to play them. Next we have First Winter, which this is 96% positive horror game with retro graphics of some sort. Let's see. Yeah, nothing wants to work. So this looks like an Alone in the Dark 1, or maybe even Silent Hill 1 style of horror game that came out this year. I don't know why you'd want your graphics to look that way. Like, that doesn't appeal visually. Like, nobody wanted their graphics to look terrible on the PS1. They were just doing the best they could, and that's why we see so many remasters of early 3D graphic games where it looks way better. So the idea of being nostalgic for like pixely jagged edges, it makes no sense. I'm not really sure why this was even on my wish list or my follow list in the first place. I know people are saying this is positive, but why? Why would I have even let it get this far? Like, all-time peak of 5 people. Good but short adventure. See, I think I think we have a case here of voter manipulation. Like, there's just 5. I don't know. I'm not making any accusations, but when you have an all-time peak of 5 people at the same time, you have 1 person that played it today, and yet you have 58 people that took their time to review a game, and the game looks like this. This feels like somebody paid somebody to write positive reviews for their game. Like, this should not be in my wish list. There's nothing appealing to it. Next we have Flipping Death, and if any of the images decide to load, I'll put it on the wish list. In fact, I could probably buy this bundle at some point and get all of these games. In a weird way, almost every single game on this bundle is not something that I would buy individually, but the bundle might push me towards it. Flipping Death is a puzzle platformer where you throw your death's scythe, and that lets you jump and do platforms, and you can inhabit the bodies of living people. And I think the point of the game is you have different people that you're trying to kill for death to be allowed to go back to your own life, or something along that lines. You can put it on the wish list though. It's reached enough reviews that I trust it. Another game that came out just a few months ago and not a lot of coverage, although to be honest I've stopped listening to a lot of coverage of video games too. So at most I'm seeing a few YouTube streamers, and most YouTube streamers stick with a few games and that's it. Next we have a game called Gravity Bone. I don't know why this is on the follow list in the first place. Seems like I do that sometimes, that I just add things to the follow list for... Gravity Bone is a short first-person shooter and a prequel to 30 Flights of Loving. So then the question would be, is 30 Flights of Loving even on my wish list? Quadrilateral Cowboy is, but 30 Flights of Loving is not, and it's mixed reviews in the first place. So I probably put this on a follow list because I thought, oh, I was going to play that other game, and so I want to play the prequel to it. But as things stand, neither one of them are on the wish list, so I'm not going to play either one of them. And I think that is perfectly fine by me. So we can just move forward. Here we have another racing game called Grip Combat Racing. It's got the reviews. That's all I really needed to see. Another example of a game that really did catch on. Seems like racing games catch on pretty quickly and easily. 1,280 65 reviews since November 6th. Don't really have to spend a lot of time on that. Next we have Groove Coaster, which is another rhythmic game. It is from Geisha and Taito, which are two recognizable Japanese companies, so that might mean something a little bit more. But I need to be really serious and realize that A, I can't cover this because of YouTube, and B, I can't cover this because I have no rhythm. Also, this screenshot, which is not loading here, seems to indicate that this was probably a cell phone port of a game, and I'm sure people are fine with that. Seems like there's also a considerable amount of bundle that you could buy just to buy more music. Yeah, I don't know what you could do to sell some to have me with no rhythm play a game like this. Like, I don't know how that works. Well, yeah, and I suppose it's important to point out that the mascot anime girl in a game like this is probably not going to be seen in any other different poses or doing anything else too much. You know, for games like this in particular, if Steam were to really break into side-loading apps and iOS apps for your rooted iPhones and Google apps for even non-rooted cell phones, would be definitely a way to go. It makes a lot more sense if Steam said, hey, we've got all these relationships with game developers. A lot of them have already made cell phone games. Let's publish those games and connect those accounts to the same thing. When we look down here in comparison, right now Steam supports Windows and Macintosh and Linux sometimes, and that's kind of it. And while Android is built on Linux, technically Android's its own separate thing. But yeah, I would like to see Steam, if they were going to branch out on Android and cell phone games, because then this would make a lot more sense if I was on the storefront and said, well, this is a cell phone game, but if I buy it right now on the storefront, I'll get the PC version and the cell phone version in a bundle. That would be some value added. Next we have a game called Hamrick, H-A-I-M-R-I-K, which is 80% of 21 user reviews, so it's past that point. This is another one of those violent graphic horror games. See if we can... oh, this one actually is the word game. So I think this is actually more of a typing game than you would realize. So you have to type in specific words to activate specific things. I was a little iffy on this because I wasn't certain that this was gonna work well, but it's reached that level, so I'll put it to the wish list. Like, there certainly are ways that games like this could just turn into a nightmare, or it can turn into something really interesting. Typing of the Dead being a great example of something rather interesting when it's just a basic on-rail shooter that's been modified for typing. Let's see. Here we have headliner Novi News, another game about hashtag fake news where you decide which articles get published and shape a public opinion. This is rated 90% positive. The thing here is that this could have been a game, and it still very well might be a game that just pushes the idea of fake news to an extreme conspiracy theory style of thinking, or it could be very on topic. It could be very political, or maybe not. Let's see, it seems like you're also seeing direct reactions to the articles you're publishing. This one's already on the wish list, so I'll just add it to the follow, remove it from the follow list. I want to just double check on this developer to see if there was a second headliner game. Yes, there already is one. So there's, seems like they're publishing sequels to get a little bit more money, but that's not too much. $2 for the first game, $10 for the second game, assuming the $10 version is a lot longer. Let's move forward. Not moving as fast as I thought I would, but I knew that this was going to be a longer video. Next we have a game called Heartbeat. Make friends, make enemies, go fishing, collect cards, beat up sharks, beat up tigers, obtain denim blade, train fuzzy infantile insects for battle, and uncover ancient secrets in this monster field adventure. So this feels like this is a kind of random RPG game. I'm not sure if this actually is made with RPG Maker. RPG Maker has introduced a new version called RPG Maker MX that has probably at least somewhat contributed to a considerable loss of any new RPG makers being published on Steam, although it may also be the case that Steam has finally said we're just not going to approve these cheap low-effort RPG Maker games on our storefront. So this looks kind of like it might be a Pokemon style RPG clone type thing. I feel like I've heard of this developer. The weirdness here is because there will never be a Nintendo game on PC, it's not likely at least, without running emulators, and at that point there's no point of reviewing a game that can't be purchased easily or played easily. This looks like this might be a Pokemon clone, and I'm thinking that that is the reason why I put it on the list. And for that reason, it is now above that limit, and it came out just a couple weeks ago. I think it deserves to be on the wish list. Like, this doesn't look too bad if you look at it from the idea of it's a Pokemon clone. Now, when games like Ooblets come out, and those are going to be a 3D Pokemon clone, we may find that Ooblets supersedes a game like this, and at that point I would potentially remove it from my wish list. But that'll happen at the end of, I suspect, 2020 when I do the wish list cleanup at that point. Yeah, a lot of things could change over the course of the next year or two. So I'll deal with that when that happens. I think there is room to have a 2D Pokemon clone and a 3D Pokemon clone, and have those both exist and cover both of those if they turn out to be good. Next we have Hellgate London. Now the thing about Hellgate London is it is like a re-release of the Hellgate series, which seems like it has a very niche following of but then runs into this problem of never really being good games. And unfortunately, Hellgate London is only at 62% positive. The idea that monsters break into the world through portals and you have to do these Diablo-esque raids to defend your world, and you're fighting with guns and armor. I mean, it's not a terrible thought, it's just implemented badly. And see, we just watched the video and that looks great and all, but the actual gameplay isn't in no way as good looking as what that video looked like. And it's really just not a quality product, unfortunately. One day I hope they get it right, but they just haven't. Let's see. Suffers a game-breaking bug which drops the frames per second to 1 and for extended periods of time. 1 frames per second game breaking. It removed content. The game works once, then it wouldn't ever start again. Just like the basic things of the game is broken. So unfortunate, really unfortunate. Maybe one day they could make a good game with that thing. The idea of the Hellgate series, I guess, would be best suited if somebody else purchased it and did something with it. Honestly, you know what? If Gearbox purchased the license to Hellgate and made games that were in that world but felt a lot like Borderlands, that would be great for Gearbox, because Gearbox does not own Borderlands. 2K does. So that would be a pretty smart move for them to do that. Next we have Herald and Interactive Period Drama, which you don't get too many period drama games. Book 1 and 2. The question then becomes, is Book 2... Yeah, no, Book 3 and Book 4 are in development for September 2018. So, unless this developer released those games, which they haven't, this one needs to stay on the fall list. It's an early access, unfinished game. Like, I get it. It seems like this might have some gay romance in it because it's part of the Queer Games bundle, or something like that in there. I don't really have a problem with that at all. In fact, I'm more than happy to play a game like that. The problem is it's not finished, so until it's finished it stays on the follow list. And see, these are the kind of things that I wouldn't have looked for and I wouldn't have realized in my brief look at all of the games on the follow list. But we are making a decent amount of progress, considering we're still only at H's. We're making decisions that are either getting added to the wish list for the most part or getting removed. Now this looks really interesting and good looking. 84% of 26 users, and it's from kind of an unrecognizable developer and an unrecognizable publisher. But this looks good. Is this a Chinese game? I would suspect it is, even though it could very well be a Japanese game. It looks more like a Chinese game to me, but quality one, which It's always nice to see quality products coming out of the Japanese video game market because there's just so much that isn't quality. Okay, this can go to the wish list. I don't see any reason to hold it back any further. There's been enough of an endorsement from fans or people who bought the game. Next we have the Holy Potatoes, a spy story. I think there's a whole series of these Holy Potatoes games. Says it's a strategy isometric game. Come on, load screenshots. The fact that the screenshots jump forward is a problem too. This is from Daedalic Entertainment. I know that company, and they tend to do pretty decent quality game design. It looks to me like it's one of these move around games, but seems like they're somehow broken up into levels. Alright, well, I'll trust the 71% to put it on positive and add this to the wish list. I don't think we need to go any further from that. We could see if the other Holy Potatoes games. This one is mixed at 31 reviews. So maybe they've gotten better. And let's see. This one is mostly positive, and it's a space one. So I think I'm gonna have to decide at some point whether I'm gonna play the whole Holy Potato series or not. I think that's really what it's gonna come down to. Let's see. There's a whole collection of DLC here. So now everything should be on the wish list. Yeah, and I'll just have to, if I ever get around to actually buying these games, decide whether in totality it's worth going for those kind of games. The good news is that means I can remove this from the file list, and I can remove this from the file list, and I can remove this from the file list, but it's not on the file list. It's weird that this one game is not as well received. Not fun. It's very disappointing. I didn't like this one. Least fun of the 3 games. Missing the charm of the other 2 games, in my opinion. See, and as a video game critic, I probably would just buy this bundle and play these in order and go, alright, well this one was good, this one sucked, this one was good, this one was good. 3 out of 4 ain't bad. And I don't always want to just play good games, but also I don't want to play terrible games that nobody would have had any opportunity to ever even know about if I didn't decide to cover them. There's no reason to give coverage to something that would have died a death of obscurity anyways. Next we have Idle Kingdom Builder. It's 38% positive. We don't have to go any further. The fact that it's an idle game and it's negative is more than enough to remove it from the file list. Next we have a game called Immortal Unchained, which is a action-adventure violent Souls-like game with over 100 guns. I don't know how Souls-like a game can really be with guns. It's an interesting idea, certainly. Like, I don't even think the Dark Souls games allow the main players to have bows and arrows or throwing knives or anything like that. It's very much designed around dodging and parrying and rolling and backstabbing, close combat. Well, this is rated solid 70%, not the greatest of percentages, I would say, but not bad enough to leave it off the wish list, so I'll leave it there. And now it has New Game Plus, so maybe people are a lot happier with it because of that. And I can think of a lot of games that would benefit from New Game Plus. Next we have a game called Infliction, which is an interactive nightmare, it says. Yep. See, we've already seen a game like this on the wish list. A horror game where you're just kind of walking around. And it really is going to come down to how it looks and whether it seems like it actually has any gameplay mechanics. The problem, particularly as we've reached the end of 2018, is that even a asset flip game can purchase and flip assets that look so amazingly good that you can get tricked by screenshots. So the things that I'm seeing right now, the spinning column, the photo that changes depending on how you tilt it, those are the things you're looking for. You're also looking for things like, is this a consistent art style, or do some walls and textures all of a sudden look way worse than other walls and textures? This looks very good. I'm wondering if maybe this is also a VR game. But yeah, this definitely looks like a horror game that deserves to be on the wish list. Update 2.0. Closed captions. Interesting. That's a new thing. Let's see. Nothing here that says anything about VR. I felt like maybe this would be a VR game though. I guess not. Well, it looks good. It goes to the wish list. Next we have Iris Fall. This is a game I've heard a couple of people talking about. It's a kind of shadow puzzle platforming game. You manipulate the light and then you manipulate shadows, and then that lets you walk and transfer yourself through the shadows. When I edited it, it had no reviews, I'm sure, and now it has 283, so this one is definitely one that can just make it to the wish list immediately. It's got quite a big endorsement, 89% positive. Let's just move on. And at this point, we've been going 2 hours and we're only at J's. So, unfortunately, I had hoped that I would have been able to cover all of this in one day. But this clearly is taking a lot longer than I thought it would. So I'm going to go ahead and end this recording, and we'll have a part 2, possibly a part 3. The part 2 or part 3 should come out, well, tomorrow is Wednesday and I'll be streaming Hearthstone, so I'll try to get it out on Thursday. Man, I'm overcommitting my time, certainly. Anyways, that's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos, because that helps me with YouTube and tells them that my videos are worth watching. If you want to friend or follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Google+, Steam, or Battle.net, There's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. And also I have links where you can support me either through Patreon on a monthly basis, or you can friend me on Steam and you can gift me either a game off the wish list or a game you'd just like to see me cover, or you can gift cards, which would also be very helpful. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.